much. A close race at the finish line, but Larry Morgan wins it. 7.46 seconds is the elapsed time. His speed, 184 miles an hour. Rivera very close with a 7.50. At the starting line, the advantage, actually by 3/100ths of a second, went to Rivera. So it was up to Morgan to play catch-up. By the time they neared the midway point down this quarter-mile racetrack, it was an even race. At the finish line, Larry Morgan had pulled ahead by just about a wheel length to take the win.
The U.S. Nationals champion goes another round into the semis here. Larry Morgan, great job. How about this racetrack for a pro stock car? Tell me about it.
Man, this is beautiful. I'll tell you, the cars are, my car got down the track pretty good. I think it's a good track. I think it's going to be beautiful next year. Give it a little time. It is beautiful here.
We saw Bruce Allen get crossed up and have to shut it off. Just his car, you think?
I think it's just a car. I went fairly straight, so I feel awful confident.
Confident he should.
Well, the wind continues to be a factor. You can see and hear it as it blows in here into Heartland Park. But the interesting note is it is headed directly down the racetrack. It is a true headwind facing each of these drivers. In the far lane, the #1 qualifier, the AC Delco Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. He has had quite a weekend. A 7:33 elapsed time in qualifying put him #1. That earned him the right to race the #9 car. Bob Glidden off pace just a little bit with a 7:41 for his qualifying spot. It was 2 weeks ago that Bob Glidden was on top of the world, receiving a plaque from Bob Maston of Winston, signifying his 75th national event title. That plaque, by the way, had 75 diamonds in it.
And here was that race in round #1 earlier today. It was Glidden in the Ford Probe in the near lane, Warren Johnson in the far lane, and right now, right about here, Glidden and his son Billy knew they were in trouble. After Glidden suffered that rare first-round loss, we talked. Bob, we went from the peak of Maple Grove, Pennsylvania, in your 75th win, to the valley of Topeka, Kansas, in a first-round lose.
That's the way it goes, Steve. That's racing. We just didn't get our act together. We qualified really poorly, 9th, and 9 runs won, and Johnson, he's really stepped up.
What makes the difference, though? The performance fall off?
That's a good question. If you can find the answer to that, come by and I'll give you a little change to tell me.
Don't count on that.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
At least Bob Glidden can still laugh about it. Darrell Alderman is the competition for Warren Johnson here in round #2. Alderman drives the Trackside Edge Dodge, and this is the only Mopar that is competitive in pro stock. He's already won the Gator Nationals this year, and underneath the hood is a 500 cubic inch engine that is a wedge motor. This is not one of the famed Hemis that the Chrysler people have made so famous over the years. Johnson in the far lane, Alderman in the near lane. Just at the finish line. What an upset. Darrell Alderman, a 7:43 elapsed time. A losing 7:45 for Warren Johnson, falling off pace considerably.
This is some of the most incredible pro stock racing we have seen all year long. Glidden out round 1. Now the #1 qualifier gets blown in the weeds by the only Dodge in the sport with a last-second surge. Just terrific action. You can see why the fans are on their feet for every round.
A tremendous race, and look how close it was at the finish line. Darrell Alderman by half a car length. That win sends him into the semifinals where he meets Larry Morgan, but this time Alderman has Lane Joyce. The other pair, an intra-General Motors battle between Joe Lapone Chevy and Iaconio's Pontiac, and Lapone has the choice of lane. Steve?
Well, for a man who wins so often with hole shots, it's got to be nice to outpower the low qualifier. Your 7:43, but his 7:45.
I'm tickled to death. Wayne County tuned on this thing. We've been working with the clutch, and they just done a fantastic job.
The car really has been in a little bit of a slump.
Yes, I'm the one that's been in a slump, Steve. The car's been doing great.
Well, you're back on your game, too.
I hope so.
Never without a smile, that's Darrell Alderman, one of our 4 semifinalists in pro stock. In Top Fuel, Kim LaHaye, she's the crew chief on her dad's Top Fuel dragster. They're comparing notes about the setup with their car in the race against Connie Coletta.
Drive as many miles a year as I do, you gain a lot of respect for the guys who keep you going, the professional mechanics who fix your car. It takes a lot of smarts up here to stay up to date on electronic and mechanical procedures for more than 300 different car models, and they change every year. Respect them? You bet I do. And when these professionals insist on quality auto parts without running all over town, they turn to CarQuest auto parts stores. Yeah, you'll find it at CarQuest.
It's a study in contrast this weekend at Heartland Park, Topeka. On the one hand, you have low qualifier Shirley Muldowney signing autographs. In another part of this spacious facility, an effort has been put forth to assemble some of the cars of the past to show the young fans just what's happened to drag racing in 35 years.
NHRA is still totally dedicated to safety, but that old logo from the first Nationals at Great Bend, Kansas back in 1955 has been changed many times, modernized, as it were, to keep pace with the rest of the sport. Now, you look at the starting line here at Heartland Park, Topeka, that incredible nerve center. Well, this was it. This was all they had in 1955 at Great Bend. You pulled in, you opened the flap, you signed up all the competitors. When the day was done, you gave them their trophies. There was zero prize money, and that was about it. Now, there's a great exhibit here in the pit area today that a lot of fine folks are enjoying. And under this tent is one of the cars that actually competed back in 1955. That is Bill Stiles' 39 Chevy pickup. That was one of the first small block Chevrolets that made it from wrecking yard to hot rod. Now, this street roadster was the class winner, moving up a couple of years, in 1957. Carl Stone's famous machine, and that has the 57 Corvette motor with the Stromberg two-barrel carburetors that were so popular in those days. Now, outside the tent are some real beauties. You're looking at the high-rise 427 Ford engine in Dino Don Nicholson's famous 1964 Mercury Comet. Now, this was Mercury's first attempt at factory drag racing, and it was Dino Don's first non-Chevrolet ride. Now, at the 64 U.S. Nationals, the car performed in the mid-10s at almost 140 miles per hour, but the Dino man blew a clutch and didn't win the class. But later that year, he did win 79 out of 80 match races, a car that will be long remembered. Now, by the 1966 U.S. Nationals, there was such a thing as a funny car. Now, this was the Ford Motor Company's first attempt at serious factory drag racing, the Phil Bonner car, Daddy Warbucks. Holman and Moody out on the West Coast built 8 of these cars. Fiberglass bodies, not flip top. No superchargers, fuel injection, but lots of nitro, 90%. Car ran in the mid-8s at almost 180 miles per hour. Now, by the 1969 U.S. Nationals, my, how the funny car had evolved. This was Connie Coletta's Bounty Hunter. Flip-top body, tube chassis. Take a look at the roll cage. Huh, I don't think there's a funny car driver here today that would wheel this thing to speeds over 200 miles per hour. Just not enough protection. Now, the engine in this car, the Boss 429 Ford. Now, it is still the basic power plant being used right here this weekend in Bob Glidden's Ford Pro stock machine. Now, notice where it says Bounty Hunter. Well, after the 69 U.S. Nationals, that was changed to Bounty Huntress. This was Shirley Muldowney's first funny car.
In those days, a funny car was capable of about 200 miles an hour. Today's modern creation, 280 miles an hour plus, and a pair of them are coming to life. Kenny Bernstein, the reigning 4-time champion. The battle of the big red cars, his competition, the guy that holds the speed record at over 283, Mark Oswald.
Oswald also holds the elapsed time record at 5.21 seconds. And David, the rules, the technology, has more than kept pace with the speed. These cars are, no question about it, safer than that old car of Connie and Shirley's.
Steve, you talked about the roll cage in Connie's old car. Compare it with the one that Mark Oswald is sitting in.
Well, Mark Oswald has far more protection because the roll cage is much tighter, and the driver literally is kind of wedged down in it. If you hit something, the guardrail or whatever, you're not flying around inside that car. You're in a cocoon of chromoly steel.
Mark Oswald, the #1 qualifier here with a fine 5:22, driving the Motorcraft Probe, is challenging once again Kenny Bernstein. The interesting note throughout all qualifying runs here, these two cars ran side by side, testing each other on each and every run. And based on qualifying times, Mark Oswald obviously came out the victor.
Mark Oswald has this entire field scared to death. He is running with awesome power and uncanny consistency. That's the young man to beat.
Kenny Bernstein ran a very respectable 5:36 in qualifying. But when you subtract the difference of Mark Oswald's 5:22, he's 14 hundredths of a second behind in performance. He is also behind in his quest for a 5th Winston Championship. Bruce Larson's got a big lead.
Mark Oswald would be happy at the end of the season to just hang on to that number 2 spot he enjoyed last year.
And Oswald moves to the semifinals with a decisive victory over Kenny Bernstein. The time, 5.34 seconds. Bernstein was back a 10th at a 5:44. Oswald just dominating as Bernstein tried his best to play catch-up, but was unable to do so. Off the starting line, they were practically equal. But by the middle of the race course, the car in the far lane, Mark Oswald, had moved ahead and continued to extend his lead until they crossed the finish line, where he had more than a car length daylight over Kenny Bernstein. Now let's go to the far end of the track. Steve's with the winner.
Does Mark Oswald have the field's attention? Earlier today, when Kenny Bernstein found out he raced Oswald in the second round, he said, it's going to be a short afternoon for me, and he was right.
Well, fortunately, he was right for us today. We always have good races. You know, one of us might be running one a little bit better than the other, but it's always a good race.
Car slowed down to a 5:34. The wind?
Well, the thing was a little bit soft the first round, and we wondered if we should get after it, but the front end's been in the air a little bit, so we've more or less left it alone. We kind of expected that.
Smart racing.
Thank you.
Mark Oswald moves into the semifinals as we get ready to continue with more funny car competition coming up here at the Heartland National.
Your VCR is about to explode as man and machine wreak havoc. The world's best push their talents to the edge and beyond. The action is brutal. The danger is real. The name of the game is survival, and not everyone can play. You will be there. You'll see it all. Sports cars, stockers, off-road, motorcycles. 60 radical minutes of mechanical mayhem and motorized madness. This is the best and most exciting racing action video you will ever see. Others may imitate, but you're watching the original havoc. Up in the air or down in the mud, it's all pure havoc. Order now. Call 1-800-847-7000. COD orders. Send $39.95 plus $3 shipping and handling to Power Sports, P.O. Box 6838, Encino, California 91416. Order now. This is a limited offer.
Back at Heartland Park, Topeka, it's time for more funny car action. Bruce Larson against Ed McCulloch. But before the engines fire, Steve Evans has got a very special guest from a very special vantage point.
David, we have got a bunch of thrilled spectators high up in the grandstands because they have found in their midst, enjoying the action, the founder of the National Hot Rod Association. It's chairman of the board, Wally Parks. And Wally, what a day. And how about the banners all over Topeka? Welcome home, NHRA.
I tell you, that gives us a great feeling. It took us 35 years to get back to Kansas, but we're here now, and you can see the results.
Indeed. It used to be you had to sell a city on having a race. This city sold you on coming.
Well, I think that was the case, and of course that was the case when we went to Great Bend. It was their Chamber of Commerce that divided us there, not knowing what we were starting at